I realized that being a problem solver and being resourceful really means developing the ability to look at a problem and come up with multiple different solutions towards that problem. And skills are like different things you can engage in, and traits that will help you to be able to do that are openness and trying to practice openness, being resourceful in general, and then persistence. What I really think is like being able to marry those three things to identify your problem, what is the root of it, all the information around it, and then come up with multiple options. Some may be silly, some may sound crazy, but that will really help you then be able to go, oh, I didn't even think that I could use, like you mentioned, like a broom. Right? Like, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that solves my problem, right? And so being able to have that, like I said, like openness, resourcefulness, and persistence to not give up can really help you be a better problem solver as an entrepreneur.
When I first started my wedding photography business back in 2011, I made just $5,000 in my business. Now, I bring in multiple six figures per year while working only 30-hour weeks serving my dream couples. I'm here to help you discover that it's so possible to have what you want, when you want in your business, so that you can create the life you've always dreamed of and deserve. All right, guys, welcome back to part 2 with Clarissa DiGioacchino for episode 28. And in case some of you didn't tune in to episode 27, which is the one right before this one, I still want to make sure to introduce Clarissa to you so you guys have context on who she is, her journey, how she got to where she is here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And those of you that tuned into that episode, you can fast forward to save yourself like 2 minutes because, you know, time is of the essence. Or what? Is that the right saying? Time is valuable. Clarissa, is that a thing? Time is of the essence?
I think so.
You know how sometimes you like say it and it doesn't sound right?
I think you got it.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I'll support you in this one.
Sweet, thanks. So Clarissa is the owner of Golden Hour Photography, and she's a photographer that specializes in weddings and small business branding. She grew up in small town Aurora, just north of Toronto, and with her mom being a freelance illustrator and her dad in business as well, she grew up inspired by them to be the best version of herself in whatever she does and has become a true go-getter. She struggled in her teenage years since she found that she was a generalist and didn't know what she wanted to focus on. She was a competitive dancer, competitive horseback rider, ran track and field, cross country, loved science, and wanted to be a vet, but then also art. So she could see herself in so many different life and career paths, but that ultimately was a beautiful thing because it led her to entrepreneurship and business. So at 19 years old, she started her own residential painting business with college pro painters to learn how to run a business. That business model gives students the chance to run their own franchise in the summer. And for 3 years, she did just that and grew her business into $500,000 enterprise by painting houses. She then went on to coach a team of 19 other business owners in Toronto and the GTA for 2 years. After an unexpected shift in that company, she decided to pursue her love of photography full-time and is new to the wedding industry. She is excited to focus on growing, making connections, and creating art for people with passion in both their love and their businesses. She is also a firm believer in supporting and sharing knowledge rather than hiding it and keeping it a secret. So yay, welcome again. And also
Yay.
Big welcome to like from me and everyone in the wedding industry to the wedding industry. Cause like, yeah, like it's such an exciting like new chapter of your life. And man, I can't wait to see how you keep growing and evolving.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro again.
And yeah, I had so much fun reading it again. It's so actually a really good one. You inspired me to like write more of a story intro for when I'm a guest on other people's podcasts, because I'm just kind of like, this is what what I do now. This is what I've done for the past 9 years. But like, I love those storytelling of yours. Yeah. So thanks for the inspo.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like when I was writing it, I was like, how do I like sum everything up? I've kind of like done a little bit of everything. I've
Yeah.
never been like and by no means am I an expert right now, but I've never really been like this girl. I've always been like, I do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that. So I'm like, how do I even, okay, this is it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about entrepreneurship. And even me reading your, like in your bio, like I'm like, oh yeah, that's me too. I always get so interested in different topics and things. I want to try everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm an entrepreneur. It makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm so excited to talk about problem solving and being resourceful today. I think it's such an important time with everything that's happening right now to even kind of go into that space of programming ourselves to thinking like everything is figure outable. Like, have you heard of that book by Marie
Oh yeah.
Forleo? I think I
I
talked
haven't read
about.
it, but
Oh
yes.
yeah, last time we talked about, yeah. So yeah, that book and that saying, that mantra, everything is figure outable, has just been now ingrained into my mind, and it's so helpful. So if anyone needs that inspiration, like head over, like after this, you can head over to the show notes, sarahmonica.com/28. I'll link the book there. And she just talks so much about problem solving, being resourceful, and all these stories. But yeah, I can't wait to dive into the topic with Clarissa today. And I would love to hear your perspective on like, why do you believe that being resourceful and a problem solver is key to being an entrepreneur?
Oh man, that is a packed question.
Yeah.
I it's yeah, like I think to kind of build on our last episode, which I would encourage people to go listen to.
Yes, please do.
Yes, like the concept of like emotional regulation, which we talked about, is also key when it comes to being able to problem solve or to teach yourself how to be a problem solver. And I don't necessarily think like being resourceful always has to be like using something in like a different way than it was meant to, or like, like always being creative. It's more like, how do you look at a problem and how can you work through it? And I think I said this last time, but I believe the essence of being an entrepreneur is you are a problem solver for your customers and your clients in whatever industry that is. So it's definitely a learned skill. Some people have it naturally. Some people can definitely like work on it and have to work on it, but it's such an important piece of running your own business.
Yeah. And so for those that feel like they don't have that skill, right? That maybe they're stuck in a mind block of, I can't do this, it's too hard. They can do it because they have this, or I don't have that, so I can't do it. It's mainly our thoughts, right? But so if someone's feeling like they're lacking the skill, like where would you suggest that they start?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I was like thinking through this concept and writing some notes out for this episode, I was realizing like being resourceful, it definitely isn't, it takes more than skill, but it's that ability to be able to process your emotions and then think through things intellectually. So it's interesting. I was reading an article.
Yeah.
I'll get to your answer, but I was reading an article on the topic. How to teach your children how to be more resourceful. And research shows that if you can teach your children like how to use things differently, or how to just be a skeptic, but in a healthy way. So like thinking about questioning things, or how could I also use this? Or how could I, this mug, what else could I use this mug for? Or like what purpose could it serve other than just what its title is? I think that's a really cool way for people to be able to begin to problem solve and learn how to be resourceful. And in the article, it showed that children who were taught to kind of think through things differently, or do these different ways of thinking, were better at responding to stress, and then also at achieving their own goals. So, and it's funny because like the commonalities that these kids had were that they were able to see beyond everyday solutions and what something is just titled, not giving up when the problem got really hard, but rather like seeking out help or seeking out different ways of still getting to their goal. And then the big one, I think, is like constant reflection and learning from their mistakes along the way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so much of that. So wait, remind me of the three commonalities. So it was seeking help, like not giving up, seeking help, And then
seeing beyond
learning
everyday solutions.
Oh yeah. So learning from their mistakes and seeing beyond everyday solutions. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm trying to like take notes here because I'm like, this is so good. Okay, so it's so funny because right away when we were talking about this, the thing that pops into my head is I was thinking lately of, because I miss my like weights classes at Good Life. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, do I want to commit to purchasing some more like weights so I could do this at home during this period, right? But I'm like, but I don't know how long this is going to last. And like, it's hard to make that decision. And Rory is like, well, Sarah, you know how like we're doing that 30-day minimalist challenge? We just got rid of like a mop. It's sitting in the garage because everything that's sitting in the garage now until it can safely donate it or whatever. He's like, I can just like chop off the mop head and somehow add on weights to either end and you can have your bar. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is so resourceful. So it's funny that came up into my brain when you were like talking about this.
Totally.
But that's so funny. And so seeking help, I think is so key because whenever I felt stuck on my journey in my building my business or anything like that, I always have turned to investing in myself or, like asking in like a community Facebook group, hey, like I'm stuck here. Like, what are you guys doing? So I think that's like definitely a very valuable point because we can't get through this alone, like this thing called life and this thing called entrepreneurship and business alone. But is there any, I'm trying to think of like, is there any examples that you have of you being either like seeking out a solution of like a thing that's like different than ordinary or seeking help or learning from one of your mistakes that kind of led you to a result that was
Definitely
the end result that you wanted?
Yeah. Completely. And I think it's funny what you just said there, but like you naturally, like you've always done that. I actually think this is maybe where we differ, which is so funny because we found so many commonalities. But I've always had a hard time asking for help. Like and I didn't even know it. And it was someone said to me when I first joined College Pro that I had like he didn't say this, but it was like a pride problem. And I like really, one of the things that might hold me back and might, prevent me from hitting my goals is that I would have a hard time asking for help. And when that individual told me that, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I ask for help. I like call my friends all the time and I call my family. But I didn't realize like when it really came to like tooth and nail, like asking for help in those moments in my business, I just like would turn inwards or I'd shut down or I'd have anxiety and just be like, and keep on trying to do something like the same thing over and over again to get different results.
Yeah.
And that never works, right?
Yeah.
So it was like this realization. So over the years, oh man, like you asked of an example, I think in almost everything I've had to ask for help. When I transitioned out of running that franchise, I became a business coach. And for so long, I had this idea of how I wanted to coach people. And I took, learnings and lessons from podcasts and books and different resources and my mentors. And I realized like I just had to ask the individuals I was working with, like for help working with them, which is a really weird thing.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. Because I had this concept of like, I'm going to go outwards for all this help. But then I was working with people, and even like anytime you're working with someone, like the best thing I could have done is like, hey, I actually need some help working together right now. Like, I'm not sure where to go. And it took me like kind of lowering my own ego and my own perception of what I thought asking for help meant or titled me.
Yeah.
And really pushed myself. So yeah.
That's so interesting. So in that case, were you kind of like, did you have to kind of open up to your clients or that you were coaching and say, I need, like, was it more like, I need this from you?
Yeah.
Is it kind of like their because you know how sometimes like, I know I've had a friend that was a personal trainer and she actually like quit that industry because she got frustrated with, she gave everyone the plan, everything they needed to do, but they just wouldn't be in action. And it's like, you can be coached and you could like be like inspired and told what to do, but unless you actually put in the effort and the action, it's not helping anyone move forward. So
Definitely.
is that kind of what you had to do?
Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
And even like just being able to say like, hey, I actually don't know how to move forward right now, even though I'm your coach. So how can you help me understand what you're going through, or why this isn't happening, or why, you're not hitting your goal or taking action?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard for people to answer, but it's even just engaging in the conversation that helped, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And it's kind of, it's beautiful because every interaction is a team effort. There's two people. So even
Exactly.
relating to like wedding clients, it's so important. Like in my PDF with all my collection menu, when like people inquire about wedding photography, I write in there like that trust is key. Like if you don't trust me, I won't be able to feel free to create how I want to create. I'll feel stuck. Like I'll feel, if someone's kind of like saying like, Sarah, are you sure we should be doing this? Right away, my creativity, I feel like it gets cut off because I'm in my brain instead of in my intuition, instead of I'm thinking all the thoughts like, oh my God, am I doing this wrong? Are they judging me? Do they like regret like hiring me? All these things, right? So, but if someone lets go of control and they're like, oh, Sarah, we trust you, I create my best work, right? So it's funny how, it's a team effort. And I found as soon as I started communicating with clients in some form or another, whether it's on my website or consistently in my Instagram captions. So I love like when my couples trust me, I create things like that, like art like this, or I capture moments like this. Always just like talking about it creates those expectations. And then that creates like the result that you want, which is like them trusting you in a team effort. All right, guys. So straight up, I just had a brain fart and we like paused the episode to be like, where are we in talking about all of this? So yeah, we just had a pause and now we're back on track. Okay. So Clarissa, you mentioned there are 3 skills that can help you form better problem solving abilities. So I would love to hear what those are.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was thinking about it and kind of what's helped me, I realized that being a problem solver and being resourceful really means developing the ability to look at a problem and come up with multiple different solutions towards that problem. And some skills are like different things you can engage in, and traits that will help you to be able to do that are openness and trying to practice openness, being resourceful in general, and then persistence. And what I really think is like being able to marry those 3 things to identify your problem, what is the root of it, it's all the information around it, and then come up with multiple options. Some may be silly, some may sound crazy, but that will really help you then be able to go, oh, I didn't even think that I could use, like you mentioned, like a broom as weight, right? Like I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that solves my problem, right? And so being able to have that, like I said, like openness, resourcefulness, and persistence to not give up can really help you be a better problem solver as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And would that include like just even a 5 or 10 minute brain dump on a piece of paper of just like
100%.
Even if it sounds ridiculous in my brain, I'm just going to write down, somehow everything will connect.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Or even I've heard of, I don't personally do this because I'm a very visual person, so I don't personally use mind maps because I find that they confuse me actually, because there's so many things. But it works for some people. It's like if you can create a mind map that connects all your different ideas, it can really help you then be able to see the different options and action to take.
Yeah.
So,
and it's so interesting and so fascinating how if you just become like consciously aware that maybe you're freaking out, maybe you're like, okay, I have a problem, I don't know how to solve it. And then if you're in a state of fear or anxiety about the future, or fear, like not knowing what to do next, and if you focus on that, then you won't access that way of like being, again, open and more resourceful, right? You won't access it. But if you kind of pause and you're like, okay, step 1, let me just imagine all the different ways this possibly could work, right? And then brainstorming it out, taking that time to focus on that piece of paper and all of the possibilities, all the ideas, you take yourself on a whole new trajectory and a whole new path. So
totally,
it all comes down to the mind and us choosing to not be our mind and not our thoughts, and
what do
choosing.
they call it? Oh, go ahead.
No, go
Sorry.
ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead.
Don't they call that like
Analysis. Yeah.
paralysis by analysis? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like totally that concept.
Exactly. Yeah. So then, so you said that there are like 3 things that can actually dampen problem solving as well.
Mhm.
So for now, so right now we have the 3 skills that can help you are openness, being resourceful, and persistence. So not giving up. And then, so what are the 3 ones that can dampen it?
I have found that their comparison, being closed-minded, so they're actually the opposite, and then being afraid of making mistakes. Yeah, because what I have found in the past is the more that in my business I've compared myself to others or judged myself negatively, it avoids me from, or avoids me. I
Yeah.
don't think that's a word.
I love it.
It stops me.
Yeah.
Stops me from being able to problems. Like I can't even think forward. So for example, like with my college pro business, the way that it was structured is like there would be a bunch of other students that were running this business with you, and we would all have goals, and to kind of foster this like team spirit, we'd all say our goals out loud of like what size business we wanted to run. And this was an awesome tactic. For myself though, I found if I wasn't aware of this, I would compare myself so much to the other person's goal, I would not even focus or think about what my goal was. And then how was I ever going to get closer to that goal if I only was focused on that person's? And I feel like that's talked about so much, but it's so true, which is
Yeah.
why it's talked about. It's like,
so true.
yeah.
I
So
can relate so much. Like comparisonitis can be paralyzing, and just to be vulnerable with where I am. I mean, I think all like let's say like wedding photographers, right? We all have other photographers that we look up to, and it's so easy to be inspired, but also like you can either like go in a direction of lightness by being inspired by them, or like feel this like heaviness of how do they have all that together? Like I feel like I don't even know where to start or anything like that. And I experience that, I feel like on a daily basis. I feel like like, for example, even for me, for like people I look up to that are podcasters, I look at them, I'm like, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me too. And they give me so much energy and a boost, and I'm really grateful for them. But then I look at them and I'm like, I don't know how they still do episodes in that way where they like free talk, and I can sometimes free talk, but other times I feel like I need to have notes and maybe read a little bit more. And I'm like judging myself so much. Right. So it's so, see, brain fart right now.
well, I like what you said. I love it. No, I really like
it's like everyone experiences it.
Yeah.
Attention, fellow wedding photographers and fellow wannabe wedding photographers. Tell me if this sounds like you. You're scared of missing key moments on wedding days. You feel pressured to create photos that are quote unquote Pinterest perfect and Instagram worthy. You're nervous about all the different lighting scenarios that are out of your control and you're not sure how to handle them. You're confused on how to balance creating beautiful imagery while also capturing authentic moments and emotion. And you're worried about being in people's way too often. If you're like, hells yeah, Sarah, you read my mind, then I'm here all excited and bushy-tailed. Yes, I had to throw in the squirrel reference to let you know that I've created something for you that will help you become a confident wedding day storyteller in just 2 weeks. It's an online program that I created just for you called Intuitive Storytelling, and it's officially out and ready for enrollment. I want you to take a moment and imagine for a second what life would be like if you knew how to be at the right place at the right time on wedding days so you can catch those key and in between moments. You got emails back from your clients saying, you were the best freaking decision we made for our wedding. You also knew how to confidently create strong storytelling photos that people felt emotionally connected to. And you finally felt like an actual fly on the wall, aka people don't stare into your camera all day anymore. Well, it's all possible because I consistently experience these things myself. And now I want to help you make these possibilities become your reality. Are you all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right now too? Again, had to throw in the squirrel reference, you know me. So listen up. You can get started on learning all my tips and tricks of how I document wedding days as soon as today. You can go to sarahmonica.com/storytelling for all the deets and instructions on how to grab your copy of the course. You'll have lifetime access, and you can go at it at your own pace, along with a private community of other like-minded photographers that are on the same journey as you are. With intuitive storytelling, you'll be able to learn how to confidently storytell like a pro on wedding days in just 2 weeks. So, what are you waiting for? Uplevel your storytelling game this wedding season so that next year you'll be watching your inbox filling up with even more inquiries. Hello, referrals from this year's clients. So again, head over to sarahmonica.com/storytelling and sign up now. I cannot wait to see you in there. So yeah, how do we like figure out when's the right time for us to put our blinders on? Like, when's the right time to, soak in inspiration and then possibly like turn that off and like maybe go on our journey on our own for a little bit? Because technically, like, let's say you listen to a podcast for 2 months and you've got all this new knowledge. What I like to do is sometimes like not even go back to listening it for like 2 or 3 months to be like, okay, now I need to take action on that knowledge because I can't take in any more knowledge. And that actually gets rid of that comparisonitis, because then I'm like, okay, I'm doing me, I'm focused on that. So do you have any advice for people that can, like, when is the right time to kind of know when it's time to stop bringing in more inspiration and trusting that you have the ability to problem solve or create something new that maybe no one else has even created yet?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And for me, I go back to, I can only speak from my own experience. I go back to, honestly, trusting your emotions and your transition curve.
Yeah.
And I say that because it's like, if you're soaking in that inspiration and you're getting really excited, that's that like uninformed optimism, which we talked about in the last episode. And from there, it's like, okay, you'll be able, if you have awareness over this, you'll know that eventually, maybe for your personality, you'll get into that phase of like comparisonitis. So it's like, okay, when can I know this is going to happen. I'm going to stop. I'm going to give myself some time, and I'm just going to be me. And I'm going to, put these blinders up, and I'm just going to do what feels good for me and what solves my problem, and getting really specific on my goals. And whether that's a 6-figure business, a 7-figure business, maybe it has nothing to do with money. Maybe it's just living life and being able to travel or spend time with your family or your loved one or your partner. Like, whatever that goal is, I think it's like soaking in your inspiration and then getting really like pigeonholed, focused on your goal.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, how can I use that to problem solve to my goal?
Yeah.
And get there.
Yeah. And what I even find that helps too is like, if you are aware of your goal and if you write it down and you see it every day, because the only way to really achieve our goals is if we keep seeing them, like what they are. What even helps me, I think, is like just to write down the next 3 steps, like small steps. Like, even if it's like email this one person or ask advice about this topic or watch a YouTube tutorial that is half an hour long on how to do this, right? And then it's like just even taking those next kind of couple steps can give you that clarity. And that is what persistence, right? Which you mentioned is, really key to problem solving. And so the other 2 things that you mentioned that dampen problem solving are closed-mindedness and afraid of making mistakes. And the thing that hit me like straight in the heart and the gut right now is when you said afraid of making mistakes, because I can totally feel that. I feel like I'm really good at being open-minded and open-hearted. And I feel like for a long time, I was so not fearful of making mistakes, but again, the curve and guys, if you haven't tuned into the episode right before this one, 27, where she talks about the emotional transition curve, oh my gosh, it blew my mind. I love that I have this new tool in my mind to use of being more self-aware in my life and knowing how to figure out the next steps for myself in my life and business. But like, I just realized when we were talking about this that, when I first rebranded my business, I think it was like 6 years ago now, to being a more like free-spirited, a wedding photographer for free-spirited and adventurous couples. Because before that, I was very like professional, not myself, not like, it just wasn't my business wasn't reflective of who I was as a human. I went through this like phase of like the whole like curve, and I hit the point of at the end, which is what's it called? The informed optimism phase, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I feel like I could be free and I could be myself. And I'm not afraid to make mistakes, because if I'm just simply doing me and my intentions are always right, then what am I really scared of, right? Like the people that will judge me aren't like meant for me in this chapter of my life or anything, right? So I feel like I was like doing really well, like for the past like 6 years, just like in that part of my like life and business where I just wasn't afraid of making mistakes. I was just doing me, living me, and feeling good about it. But now with a new chapter of being more of an educator and inspiring others, having a podcast is also new, because you mentioned the transition curve is for new endeavors, right?
Totally.
In our lives. So I'm here on this new roller coaster where now I'm scared of making mistakes in other ways. Like on this podcast, what if I say something and then someone trolls me and dissects it, and they're like, but you said this on one episode and then this, and then they're going to call me like a liar or this, or like all these fears, right? So how do you deal with that fear of making mistakes personally?
Yeah. Oh, I love that you shared that. Thank you. Because I'm the same way. I think
Yeah.
it's so funny, because the more we can talk about it, my feeling is that people will realize we all are like that, and in different ways, but we all experience a similar feeling. Yeah, totally. Like it's something new for you, and you're naturally going to be, you're right now in your chapter are at uninformed optimism again, right? Like we're always going through it and we always restart it, because we're always doing new things. So you're back there, and it's like that moment of crisis of engagement coming up the curve is like that. Do I do this? Do I do that? I don't know. Am I going to make a mistake? And my honest advice would just be to keep doing it and to make the mistakes, but then to seek out those things that help you through it. Because otherwise, it's how else will you learn without doing them? And it's like, that's what's helped me. So even like reaching out to you, Sarah, like that was so nerve-wracking for me. I've never done something like that, but I genuinely thought we would connect. And I was like, I'm gonna see if my gut is telling me to do the right thing, and I'm gonna try it. And at the time, like putting myself back there, and for anyone else who can relate to this, it was like, what's maybe the worst that could happen? Maybe we don't connect, and that's okay, right? And that's all.
Yeah.
And I don't hear back, and that's fine. And maybe our paths weren't meant to cross, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So I just kind of tried my best to go, what is the worst case scenario I'm scared of? What would that do to me?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah. And so that helped me. Now, of course, like it's easier said than done, but I think it's like an exercise that we can all be more conscious to practice more.
Yeah. And lessons from our mistakes create more resourcefulness, because we become stronger. We have different perspectives, new perspectives on life situations and all of that. So we keep learning. And actually, guys, Clarissa reaching out to me is like the epitome of resourcefulness, because like one of the things I talk about in my very, very first episode of like my whole journey of how I got to where I am was how like I didn't get, like if I wanted a specific serving job at a specific restaurant because I knew it would be like good money, or it was specifically what I needed because I was going through a hard time in like my life with my parents financially, I was like, I'm going to make this freaking happen. I don't care what I have to do. And the thing about being resourceful is you can actually choose to like stand out and do something that no one else would do. So if you want to listen to that, listen to episode number 1. But Clarissa actually, she reached out to me instead of just like an email saying, hey, like, I love your podcast. I would love to be on your podcast too, or I would love to connect or anything like that. Then that maybe wouldn't be as enticing because I don't know her. I don't know this person. And like a lot of people reach out to me, but she recorded, it was like a 15-minute voice note, which I thought was ballsy too, because it's 15 minutes. And she straight up just went into like her life story, but also in a beautiful way of how she feels that we can together deliver a lot of value to other people. And the way she just fearlessly did that spoke to me a lot. I'm like, this person's really cool. And she just totally caught me off guard. And I want to hear more of her story. I'm like, well, this voice note's already over. Like, so
she gonna tell me more?
Yeah. So like, I mean, yeah, there's just, this is just a perfect example of like, if you really want something bad enough, like you can make it happen. Like, for example, right now, during all of this COVID stuff, guys, if you want to stand out, if you want a wedding booking, like, have you thought of maybe responding to your inquiries with a video message back? Like, no one else is doing that. Like, that's an idea, right?
I love that.
There's so many things that can be done in your control, and you can like look outside of the box. So yeah, I love how Clarissa's a perfect example of that with her. And then she taught me how to send voice notes over email. I'm like, sweet, now I have that skill.
Surprisingly,
Very easy.
We figured out it's easy.
Yeah, you literally just record a voice memo on your phone and then literally attach it to an email. And I didn't know that was possible.
I love it. Even when I tried to explain it, I was like, oh yeah, it's easy, but it's not. Oh wait, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah. So also I want to talk about how all of this is linked to creative thinking as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was thinking about that too. And in my life, because my mom's an artist, I just kind of grew up with her influence, and she's a very creative individual. So I've always called myself a creative individual. And I just realized this recently, like a couple of weeks ago, like anytime that I had been problem solving in my last business, or I had tried something new that worked, and I had other people say, hey, like, that's really cool. Like, I've never thought about it that way. I was like, oh, I'm just creative. Like, it's because I'm creative, and I like art, and I'm in the creative industry. And I realized, like, you can be creative in any industry, and creativity doesn't just equal art or photography as we know it, or whatever, what have you, like painting, right? It could, like, creative thinking is a skill anybody could use to refer to how they approach problems and like how they build their solutions to them. So, or like almost like their capacity to putting their existing ideas together in these like new combinations.
Ooh, I love that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I need to write this down. Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
like,
capacity to put together the ideas they already have in new combinations.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's true that like no idea is an original idea.
Yeah.
I can't remember how they put it, but it's like someone has probably thought of it. You will just have your way of doing it.
Yeah.
So any way that you can get creative in your business is going to effectively solve the problem you're working towards if it's focused on your goals.
Yeah. Have you heard of the book Big Magic, I think, by Elizabeth Gilbert?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Actually, I just bought it. That's so funny.
Oh my God.
How serendipitous.
All the books that I'm mentioning, she's like, I'm about to read that. What are you in my brain? Everything is figure outable, and then this one, Big Magic. She talks about how like all of us have access to creativity. You don't have to be a quote unquote creative to be creative. We are all creative. And like apparently it's such a cool, like interesting concept that she talks about how we randomly get ideas, like thought idea. And then if we don't act on that idea escapes us and goes into someone else's brain or mind or spirit. And then if they act on it, it's created. Or so she even said an example of someone who had like a book idea, and it was like there were specific, I think, characters and the storyline and everything, and they didn't write it, but then years later they read a book that was that, and they're like, what the F? And then she says it much better, because I read the book I think maybe 3 years ago, so I don't remember the exact scenario, but it's kind of like there have been instances where people are like, I literally had that idea and now it's out there in the world. It's like if you don't grab it, someone else is going to do it. And I find that so cool and interesting.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's like I really like what you said there about like, you don't have to be a quote unquote creative. And I often refer to myself as that. I say I'm a creative entrepreneur, but I kind of question myself to be like, well, an entrepreneur solves problems. Isn't everyone a creative entrepreneur then? Like,
Yeah,
if I'm
I
going to
like
be really
that.
literal, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting like concept to ask yourself, like, well, how, if I'm an accountant, how can I be creative in my accounting industry? Or if I'm a photographer, how can I be creative as a business owner and not just in the artistic way?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, okay. So with being creative and all that kind of stuff and problem solving, do you have an example of a time where you felt like you had to pivot or make a change to make something work in your life or
Mm.
business?
Oh yeah, definitely. This past year has been the definition of pivoting. So yeah, and it's really relevant now, I think, too, with everything given, going on with COVID or even the economy. Like, we're all in this stage of, we've been hearing like pivot, 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 but what does
Mhm.
that even mean, right?
Yeah.
For me, the most recent example I would say is, Sarah mentioned this actually when she introduced me, but when I had a big shift in my last career, I found essentially what happened is another company bought our company. And so there was some like rejigging of the organization, and we no longer needed my division. So I had this very safe, secure full-time job. I did photography on the side, and then I was let go. And it was this like almost like this crutch I had been relying on to help me finally then feel comfortable, quote unquote, to go do photography full time when I felt ready. But all of a sudden I was just dropped and I had to just do it. So that has been a really big pivot. And a big thing for me is like, I knew I didn't have a brand that people were aware of. I was new to the industry. I'm still new to the industry, but this was back in like November 2019. And so the pivot I made is I actually started teaching knitting classes
Oh, that's
because
so
I knew how
cool.
to do that. I don't think you knew this.
No.
Yeah. So I started teaching knitting classes under my brand of Golden Hour because it was a skill I knew how to do. I figured like it was those big chunky blankets.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, what's my problem? My problem is that no one knows my brand. And no one really knows who Clarissa truly is. And I want them to get to know that so they trust me and want to work with me and want to hire me. So how can they get to know me when it's wedding down season, right?
Yeah.
So then I started offering these classes and workshops where I would teach people how to make these chunky blankets. And it was a huge hit. And it's so funny because to me, it just was like, okay, how do I just know how to do this. I'll do it under my brand and it'll get people to know who I am and they can like meet me in person. But now that I think about it, that was a way that I pivoted my business to still be in service of my ultimate goal, which was to go to and do photography. But it was what I had to kind of, bootstrap to do so
Yeah.
people could know who I was.
Get
That's
scrappy.
exactly, yeah.
And it's
So,
all it's fun because like you involved something that you love, and then along the way, like people, like sometimes people don't realize that if you kind of show your personality or things you're into on, let's say, social media, people that maybe aren't getting married yet may follow you because they're like, oh cool, they're into that too, and then they end up meeting a photographer down the line, and then they think of you, and that's so it's like
totally.
you did that in such an amazing way. I'm very impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so fun. And I was still doing them, but then unfortunately, with all social distancing things, it's not, you don't want to be in a workshop right now. So
Yeah.
I'm not offering them, but maybe soon.
Yeah. Have you thought about virtualizing it? Mm.
Oh, problem solver.
It's a yeah,
I should.
it's an option, but it's like you have to go inward and be like, is this exactly what I need right now? Like, are there better options? Like again, the brainstorming phase, right? But that's
Exactly.
really cool that you did that. And then
Yeah.
you were also really resourceful with, you're like, okay, like what do I do now if I can't build a portfolio right now? Like,
Mm,
what the F do I do? And
yeah,
you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll focus on creating connections, right? And
exactly.
then you reached out to me in a very resourceful way. And then we connected. And then now moving forward, like maybe somehow, we can like figure out a way to help you get on that trajectory faster so that you can start booking more weddings and all of that and shooting more. So like, guys, you never know where opportunity, like what kind of opportunity lies if you just open another door. It's like, it's endless possibility. And I don't know how many times like there's so many examples in my life where I literally maybe just right now through connections and connecting with other people. I remember I reached out to a wedding photographer a while back when I was first starting my business. And I was like, I just want to let you know, I love your work. It's so beautiful. And I emailed her through her website. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. Like, that means so much. Do you want to get together for coffee? I'm like, what? Okay. And then we met up for coffee, we connected, and then she started sending me wedding referrals that she was already booked for. And I got like a couple weddings out of that. So it's like you never know what could come out of connections. And in the end, like connecting with humans is what's most important, what matters most in our lives. And that's something that I'm learning right now, right? With my journey on like opening up with connecting with more people. But yeah,
I love that.
I love all of this.
Such nerds. Being like,
I know, such nerds. You guys can also, this will be up on YouTube, so you guys can also tune in on YouTube if you want to see our nerdy faces talking about this.
Just totally loving it.
Yeah, I love our little intellectual conversations about all this. I totally get it. You're trying to get noticed and you don't know how. I mean, raise your hand if wondering where your next booking will come from keeps you up at night. I know how that feels like. I was there once too. But I'm about to help you get clear on how to increase your bookings and inquiries. After coaching many portrait and wedding photographers, I realized they all had one thing in common that was holding them back from booking their dream clients. They didn't know how to market themselves. Once they got clarity on how to show up and put what they learned from me into action, they began to book more of their dream clients. And now I'm excited to help you do the same. So I've created a mini course called Crystal Clear Marketing to, you guessed it, help you get crystal clear on how to attract and book your dream clients. I mean, the year I implemented this, my revenue grew from $69,000 to $137,000 in just 1 year. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So in case you're wondering, inside of the Crystal Clear Marketing mini course, I share how to optimize your website so that more of your dream clients inquire and book, how to go from being a generalist to becoming a specialist, and why it matters, how to find out who you are at your core and fuse it fearlessly into your business. Also, how to show up on IG so you attract quality followers. That's so important. How to make the money you deserve while feeling fulfilled with your work, and how to make marketing effortless and fun, because it should be. Running our business should be fun. So what I'm so excited to share with you is that I've made this very affordable. So to get all the deets and enroll in this mini course, go to sarahmonica.com/crystal clear. Again, head over to sarahmonica.com/crystal clear. I cannot wait to see you in there. I'm so curious. Is there anything else that's on your heart, on your mind, that you wanted to like bring up with problem solving or being resourceful that can come to mind? And if not, if you feel you got everything off your chest, that's awesome. But yeah, is there anything else that you could think of?
Totally. It's one of those things. Yeah. Well, I feel like I could talk about it all day, but like something that could really help, or even if anyone's listening to this and they're starting a business or even just starting a photography business, what's really helped me is like I sort of have this process of how I problem solve, and I think that might be helpful. So it's not something I made up, it's actually something I learned. There's a specific like process, but I'll share it with you guys. So I would first say to start understanding the problem and the goal that you're going towards. So like, what is the issue that you're trying to solve? And from there, what you can do is be very objective with this problem and almost like put yourself at this outsider's perspective. Because I find once, when we're dealing with our own business and our own passions, we get really caught up in the feelings of it and how passionate we are naturally. But I would encourage you to almost try to take yourself out, pretend it was like Joey's business and not your own business. And how would you give advice to Joey? So what I do is I make 2 lists. One is called facts and one is called feelings about the problem. And I'll just brainstorm, okay, what are all the facts about the problem or the goal that I'm trying to get to? And then what are all the feelings I have about it? Because they're both so different, but they are both valid. So it just helps me bring more awareness to it. From there, once I'm able to really look at what is my issue, what are all the facts, what are all the feelings surrounding this issue. So then once I get all my different facts and feelings out, I go into just devising different options. And like we talked about this earlier, but it was like, you just want to brain dump every possible option that could solve your problem or get you to that goal that you're trying to achieve. And for me, like an example of this is an issue I had when I started my business was that I didn't have a wedding portfolio. I had been doing photography on the side, but I didn't have photos that my ideal clients could really connect to. So an option that I thought of was building my portfolio through doing like styled shoots during the off season. So that way my clients could hopefully still see that, yes, maybe she hasn't done a ton of specific weddings. She's done a few, but she's still has these photos that we can connect with and we can see the art that she can create. And so that was an option that I chose as an example. But what I would suggest from there and what I do is I look at the different options I've generated and I just choose one. And it's one that I feel good about, I feel confident in, I create a plan around it and I'm confident that I can carry it out. And I do it.
Yeah.
So try to carry out this plan to the best of my ability. And what's really helped me is it's okay to be flexible with your plans and your methods, but very strict with the goal you're trying to get to. Yeah. And that's really helped me to just persevere, like we talked about, in persisting, right? And then last but not least, looking back and learning from it. So I often, like, once a week, I'll do like a business review and I'll go, what went well last week? What didn't go well last week? What could I change to get different results and the results that I want to move the needle? So it's like that constant feedback loop of reflection that has always really helped me be resourceful and problem solve to my goals, because it's a learned thing, and I think you need to practice it to get better at it. And that's what I've kind of done to develop it over the years.
I love that system. I'm like, that's
a big systems girl.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Actually, I just had the idea of like, this needs to be like a worksheet that people can print out and work through.
Oh,
so do you think I'm like, straight up, I'm going to ask you this right now on the podcast. Like, do you think it'd be cool for me and my virtual assistant to create that? And we'll credit you on there, put a picture of you, like Instagram, everything. Cause I think like some people just need a printout to be able to like print it out and then pick a problem and work through it. Right. So
yeah,
I think we'll make that happen. So yeah. So, okay. When you're listening to this episode, this worksheet is available now magically. So you can go to sarahmonica.com/28 to get your hands on that worksheet. Help you brain dump everything and, work through solving that problem. I love that system.
Thank you. Yeah.
And one thing that I want to say, so I know you believe in being flexible in like methods, but having a strict goal, right? So it's like, I love how I've never heard of this before, where it's like, because I know that sometimes if I have a goal and like one specific method doesn't work, I get very like, I can get down and be like, oh, like it didn't work. Like my energy has been wasted. Right. But if you just you extract what worked, what didn't, like you said, right? And then you create a new strategy around that, then your goal is ultimately still the same. So if all you need to do is just start and just tweak along the way, then you'll get to that goal. So I love that. And it even makes me think of like even working out, be flexible with the methods. Like maybe you love, like you hate going to the gym, but you love dancing. So like, just like do dance tutorials in off of YouTube or anything like that. And that's a different method, but your goal can still be to feel more energized from, being active. It's the same thing. So yeah, that I love that you mentioned that. And how did you like figure out that little like nugget of wisdom? Because I feel like that needs to be a quote: be flexible in the methods, but strict on the goal.
Oh my goodness. If I could be quoted, that would be the coolest thing.
Yeah.
But then I would be like, oh man. Yeah. I can't take all the credit for it. It's something that, so the company College Pro that I keep on talking about, that's what it taught me. And that was like the ethos of that company. And it was around for 49 years. It's still around. It's just a different service. It's not painting anymore, and different owners. But that was what they were all about. And I was so lucky, and I'm so grateful to have gone through that experience, because it was like this constant, every week it was like, okay, we're going to review the week. What went well, what didn't go well. And it just became, I basically grew up like I was 19, and like for 5 years went through that. And so it's what's really helped shape how I tackle everything now and who I am. So,
and those habits must be ingrained now. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've been very lucky to have been in that environment, but I think we can all help each other be in that environment. If it's like, if we're encouraging each other to think that way and always push to be better than we were yesterday and problem solve to our goals, and not necessarily comparing each other like we talked about.
Yeah. So. And even, have you ever tried out having like an accountability buddy where,
oh yeah,
like you have your goals, but like stay accountable to them, to someone, like a weekly check-in of, okay, 20 minutes, like tell me what was your goal for last week? Did you accomplish it? If not, what went wrong? Who do you need help from? Have you ever tried that on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I spent like 2 years with College Pro being a coach. So that was my role, and that was really cool. I completely agree with you. Like that's one of the best things you can do if you're trying to achieve something that is going to push you and push your limits, like in whatever, not just business. You could be working out, like you said, right? Yeah. It's so huge.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Clarissa, for all the insight. And I'm so excited about this new system for like the worksheet. That's awesome. So fun.
I know. Me too. I'm excited. It'll be really good.
And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yes, people can find me. I'm on Facebook, Golden Hour Photography, but you can type in Golden Hour Photo Company. And then I'm on Instagram with the same handle, just short form. So that's Golden Hour Photo Co. And then I realized I didn't mention my website last time. So I do have a website. It's goldenhourco.com. So awesome. You can find me there. And thank you so much. This has been so fun. I'm so excited that I was resourceful and connected with you.
Yeah. Look what happened. It's crazy. This is just the beginning of our connected adventure. Yeah. And awesome. So you guys can find how to connect with Clarissa in the show notes and all the resources on the worksheet at sarahmonica.com/28. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. And Clarissa, again, thank you so much for sharing all your amazing wisdom from the past couple of years. I love learning new stuff from amazing people like you. So yeah, thank you so much. And guys, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye. Yay! Thank you so much for hanging out with me and tuning into this episode. If you got value out of it, please feel free to message me on Instagram at Sarah Monica Photo. That's Sarah no H, Monica with a K, photo, to let me know. I get so freaking energized hearing from others that what I've said has had a positive impact on their lives. Also, make sure to hit subscribe to the Shine and Thrive podcast to never miss an episode. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm sending you all the productive vibes your way so you have the best week ever.